Hi guys, my name is Yas and welcome to Finding My Flow. A few weeks ago, I came on here and I talked about how I used to have this tendency to avoid confrontation and conflict. And if you haven't watched that video, I will link it somewhere around this video or in the description below so you'll have access to it. What I didn't know at the time was that technically I wasn't avoiding confrontation. I was being accommodating. And if you have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about, but you are in your own battlefield facing your own conflicts and you're having trouble with conflict resolution, I highly encourage you to keep watching this video. In this video, I want to share with you guys the 5 different styles and techniques of conflict resolution that researchers and practitioners have been able to identify so that we can learn and grow our toolbox of strategies that we can use whenever we encounter any sort of conflict in our lives, whether it is with our friends, with our family members, with strangers, with co-workers, and so on and so forth. It is important for me to say that I am not an expert on this topic. This is something that I have been challenged with quite a lot in the past, and I continue to be challenged with as I form new relationships with different kinds of dynamics. But the fact that I have been challenged has piqued an interest and curiosity in me in order to figure out how I can manage and come out of these situations as a stronger and more confident person with a lot more valuable relationships. And so I've been doing a lot of research on this topic, learning new techniques, and I want to share them with you guys because I truly believe that we can all benefit from them. Unfortunately, conflict resolution is not something that a lot of us learn while growing up. And so we end up facing a lot of stress and anxiety within our interpersonal relationships as adults. But I truly believe that it is never too late to learn, to grow, and to face new challenges. It may seem a little bit scarier and we may need to push ourselves a little bit more outside of our comfort zone, but the short-term discomfort is definitely worth the long-term gain. Before we go any further, let's first start by defining conflict. Conflict is a situation in which 2 or more people are in opposition, which results in tension or discord among them. This opposition comes from different perspectives that results from different priorities, values, education experiences, and personalities. In any particular situation, there can be as many perspectives as there are people. So as you can see, it's so easy to encounter conflict as we live in a world where we can encounter so many different perspectives. And that's why I think it's so important for us to talk about this and for everyone to develop and work on their conflict resolution skills. Because at the end of the day, even though conflict has such a negative connotation to it, if we pursue it from the right angle, it can actually help us build stronger, valuable, and more sustainable relationships. So without further ado, let's dive into the 5 different styles and techniques of conflict resolution. In any given situation where there is conflict, 2 main things come to mind. 1, how much I will get of what I want, and 2, how much the other person will get of what they want. And if you were to put this on a graph, it would look something like this. So the first technique that we are going to talk about is called conflict avoidance. I think the name speaks for itself, but let's say your friend says something to you and it hurts you because it really questions your values. But instead of confronting them and letting them know how that made you feel, instead you avoid the whole situation, you don't say anything, and you just let it go. If you were really hurt, by avoiding the conflict and not saying anything, you are going to end up over time building a lot of resentment within that relationship and towards that person. Because even though you didn't say anything, it was important for you to be heard and to be understood. And so in your mind, you still won't be able to stop thinking about it. And that can lead to future conflicts, which could have been prevented if you used a different technique instead of the avoidance technique. Now, sometimes in situations where something is not that important and it's not going to have long-term consequences, it's okay to use this technique. But remember, as long as it is not something that is going to stay on your mind and make you resent the other person. The second technique is called accommodating. This is something that I struggled with a lot because of my people-pleasing tendencies. This is where you give the other person what they want at the cost of what you want. Now, it's okay to do this if what you want is not as important to you as what the other person wants and needs. But it can get very toxic and stressful if you are constantly putting other people's needs above your own, even in situations where your needs are very important to you. The third technique or style is called dominating or competing. This is where you would put your own needs above everyone else's needs involved in the conflict. Again, this could be something that is good or bad. It can be good because you are speaking up about your needs and you're making sure that you are getting what you want and you're not sacrificing your wants for other people's wants. But if you are not careful, this can again be toxic because you can end up being the bully in the situation where you are saying, what I want is more important than what you want, so I really don't care to hear about your needs and your wants, and I just want to get what I want out of this situation. And this brings us to our fourth technique, which is called compromising. In other words, let's meet each other halfway. I'll get a little bit of what I want and you'll get a little bit of what you want, but we both have to let go of a little bit of what we want, if that makes any sense. But essentially, even though this could work in some situations, over a long period of time, it may not lead to long-term alignment. And that is because people don't usually like giving up what they want. And so this brings us to our last but not least conflict resolution technique, which is called collaborating. Collaboration is where trust grows because now it's not about what I want and me getting what I want. It's not about what you want and you getting what you want. It's about making sure that everybody gets what they want. The problem with collaboration is that it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of patience. There's a lot of listening involved in this, where you have to listen to the person in front of you and to put yourself in their shoes and to understand where they are coming from. And the same thing goes for that person. They have to be able to listen to you and to hear you out and to be able to put themselves in your shoes in order to understand the whole essence of what is happening in that situation. But this is the best way where everyone feels heard, seen, and valued. There is a lot of creativity involved in collaboration, and the most beautiful thing about collaboration is that when you come out of that conflict, you end up building such a beautiful and strong relationship with that person that you were experiencing the conflict with. Collaboration is the way to go, and I cannot wait to dedicate a whole video to talking about it. But until then, it is really important to know that we all tend to have a default conflict resolution technique that we resort to whenever we are facing something. Like I said, for me, I used to always resort to the avoidance technique or the accommodating technique whenever I face a conflict. Over time, I've learned that one size does not fit all, and I need to learn all sorts of different kinds of techniques in order to be able to resolve any conflict that I face in my life. So my question for you today is, what is your default and go-to conflict resolution technique? And can you think of a situation that you faced where you used that technique, but that technique did not do that conflict any justice? And knowing what you know now, which technique out of the 5 techniques that we talked about today would you use now to resolve a similar kind of conflict? Thank you so much for watching this far. I am learning so much about conflict, and ironically, I am facing so much conflict in my life right now. But honestly, I see all of it as a learning experience. And sometimes when you are in the middle of it all, it can get a little bit frustrating and it can get a little bit stressful. But this is why we talk about this. This is why we want to learn about all these different kinds of techniques, so that when we are facing a situation where it is unfamiliar to us, we'll know exactly how we can approach it. I cannot wait to further break this topic down in my future videos. But until then, please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed watching it. Share it with somebody who you know is struggling with conflict in their life right now and they are having a hard time with conflict resolution. And please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It really does help me make more videos like this. And until next time, I want to wish you guys a heart full of love, a mind full of peace, and a life full of flow. And perhaps less conflict.